Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lecture, we're setting up AI Gateway. This is what lets us plug a third-party AI agent directly into Unity, so it can see our project, read our scripts, and help us build our game. By the end of this video, you'll have Gemini running inside your editor, and we'll send our first prompt. So let's get right into it. So as you can see, I have a fresh Unity 6.4 project here. Just a standard 2D template, nothing special and nothing custom. The AI assistant is built right into Unity 6.4, so really there's nothing for you to download. Now, up here in the toolbar, you can see this AI button. Click and the assistant window opens up. We can do Open Assistant here, or we can use the shortcut of Ctrl-Alt-A. Let's just click here and open up the assistant. And perfect. Now we can put the assistant here. We're gonna dock it to the right, and that's where I'll be keeping it, and that's how I'll be working with it for the rest of the course. Now, if this is your first time opening the assistant, Unity will ask you to accept some terms of service and link your project to a Unity Cloud. Go ahead and accept those terms. As soon as you do, Unity will automatically download some packages for the assistant. You don't have to open up the package manager and search for it manually or do anything. As soon as you accept the terms, everything will be set up automatically for you. The next thing Unity needs is obviously your project linked to Unity Cloud. If you are not linked already, you can go to Edit, we can go to Preferences, and not preferences. We need to go to project settings. And here in services, you can see basically the Unity project ID and the Unity organization. Now, here you can either link your project and link it. That is always up to you, but make sure it's the same organization that you have the Unity AI subscription on. So mine is already linked. You can see the organization name right here. Here's an important part. To use AI Gateway, you need an active Unity AI subscription. Let's go check out the pricings real quick. If you're on Unity Pro, Enterprise, or Industry, you already have access. As you can see here, it is already included in the plan. If you're on Unity Personal, then you'll either have to do a 14-day free trial if you want to test out this feature, basically the Unity Assistant. If you want to see if you're into it and you want to actually get a subscription, you can obviously take the 14-day trial. And if you do indeed decide to basically keep using Unity Assistant and you don't want to pay for the Pro tier, for example, you can get the $10 Unity AI subscription. It will include a 1,000 monthly credit allowance, and obviously some other features, and including the AI Gateway. And this is what we basically need. One thing I need to mention is using a third-party agent through Gateway does not consume these credits here. Your credits are only used by Unity's own built-in engine. Now, before we configure Gateway in Unity, we need an API key from Google, since we're planning to use Gemini. To do that, open up your browser and go to aistudio.google.com. Here you need to sign in using your Google account. After you're signed in, you can go to Get an API Key. By default, Google already creates you a default Gemini project with a default API key. We can either use this or you can create another one based on another project. That is always up to you. Now, we can go here, we can copy this API key like so. Perfect. Now, one thing that I need to mention, this key is free to use. Google's Gemini API has a free tier, so you don't need to enter any payment methods or information, but just be aware that the free tier has daily usage limits. So if you're doing a lot of heavy prompting, you might hit a cap. But in the case of you not wanting to use Gemini, there are other options, and we can go and see these options right here. In our assistant, we can go on here. So we can Unity, we can do add agent. And here we can see the agent type. And this is where the magic happens. We can click on this dropdown and we can see 4 types of agents. These are the agents that we can use aside from the Unity AI itself. So either Claude Code, Codex, which is basically ChatGPT, Gemini, and Cursor. All of these are basically paid, so you would need to pay to get access to the API key. Of course, other than Gemini, since there is a free tier. But as soon as you have a API key, you can use it inside of Unity. In our case, we need Gemini. So we're going to click here like so. As you can see, it automatically created an environment variable for us called Gemini API key. If this doesn't automatically generate for you, you can just click add variable and write the same thing that we have over here. Now over here, we're going to paste the API key that we just got. And as you can see, we can now enable the agent. Perfect. Now, one thing to mention, Unity bundles its own version of Gemini CLI. So you don't need to install anything separately for this. It handles that for you automatically. Now, we can close this. And either we can see here it's missing credentials because we don't have an API key. That is fine. We can just ignore this by creating a new chat. And you can see it's going to initialize again. And finally, we have Gemini incorporated right here. Of course, we can test this and we can just say, let's type a simple prompt. Let's ask what it can do for us. What can you help me with in this Unity project? Which is a really simple prompt just to see if it can see the environment, if it can see the context of the files that we have currently in this project. So we can just hit and let's see. It takes a while, of course, since you have to keep in mind that the Unity Assistant is still in beta. So you will encounter some bugs, to say the least, but with some patience, everything should work out and you should see the full potential of this tool. Now, here we can see the reasoning. We can see the thoughts of the AI, what it sees, and basically you can see here that it's exploring our assets folder, which is this one. And I'm now diving. This is the name of our project. And as you can see, it is currently analyzing our Unity project, which is great. So we'll just give it a few more seconds and we'll see what it answers. Cool. Now you can see here that we basically see the response of the AI. For some reason, I can see it twice. As I mentioned earlier, you will face some bugs, but really it's not anything concerning. It's not anything that can stop me from working on this project, so we can just ignore it and move on. But as you can see, Gemini here says, hello, I'm Gemini CLI, your expert assistant for this Unity project. And it analyzed everything and it knows what we have here. So next, if we actually give it a prompt to generate something or to basically create something for us, it will know what to do, it will know what we have, and it will build on top of what we want to make. One thing I need to mention, there are different settings. There's the plan mode, YOLO, default, and the same goes for Unity, the basic AI agent. There's agent, plan, and ask, and it's basically self-explanatory. Ask just gives you basically answers. Plan gives you planning if you want to plan a feature or plan for the entire project. And agent is what you actually use to basically do tasks, to code, to create objects. And for Gemini, it is also pretty much the same thing. 1 second, let's wait for this to initialize. We have the plan mode, we have auto edit, when we have default. YOLO we won't be using for now. We really have no use case for it, so we can just ignore this. But we will be using mostly the default setting. In the next lecture, we're going to ask Gemini to help us plan out the game we're building. We'll create a full project overview document, and you'll see just how useful it is to have an AI that understands your project. So, see you guys in the next lesson. Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's lecture, we will basically talk about Unity's sprite generator and how we can use AI to create all the visual assets for our game. In order to do that, we will generate a player sprite, an enemy sprite, and a coin sprite, all from text prompts. So we're back in our project from last lecture. Right now we just have a clean 2D project with nothing in it. So let's create our first sprite. To open the sprite generator, go to AI in the toolbar, then generate new, and then we can go ahead and click sprite. Unity will prompt you to choose a name. For this, we can just say player sprite, as this is what we want to make. Cool. And let's go through a quick introduction of the sprite generator. So here you would see the model. You can either change your model, and here we have a bunch of third-party AI models. All of these are partnered with Unity, that's why they are included. And basically you can choose depending on the style or the end result you want. There's no model better than the other. All of them are just different styles, different ways they look at an image. As you can see, this is 3D platformer environment. It looks stunning over here. And there are others that do, like, for example, UI. And since we're going for something 2D, we want something flat since the end goal here is a top-down, we would use something like Game UI. And that's why I have Game UI elements, Flux here, selected. So we can just double-click and keep the model. Of course, you can experiment with different models depending on the end result you want to reach. And that is always, of course, up to you. Now, we have here a button to add more controls to prompts. This way we can either add an image reference, composition, line, depth, pose. This basically helps the AI to know what exactly we want to generate. And this is really helpful. Over here, you'll have your prompt. This is where you describe your object. And down here, this is where you have your negative prompt. And this is where you basically say or mention the stuff that you do not want in your generated image. Down here in the option, count is how many images it generates. So for example, if I put to 4, it will generate 4 images based on my prompt, all 4 with different styles and small modifications. Dimensions is, of course, self-explanatory. Custom seed, this is basically for random generation. You can basically set a custom seed and then use that same seed when generating all of your assets. In our case, we don't really care about that as much, so we can keep it turned off. Cool. Now that we got that out of the way, we can start generating. Let's start with our player. We want a 2D spaceship. Scene, let's say seen from directly above, top down view, flat, transparent background. And this is what we want. Since we want something top down, we don't want any perspective in it, so we want to basically specify that it is seen directly from above, not diagonally from above, right? We want it to be flat, of course, since we're only looking from one axis. We want transparent background, since of course it's a sprite. For the negative prompts, we will basically go for isometric, because we don't want an isometric image. We say 3D, because we want only 2D. Let's say perspective, because we do not want any perspective in our image. Shadow. Platform. I faced this issue where they would create platforms for any sprites I try to generate. So now I always try to include platform and pedestal in my prompts. That way we avoid that entirely. Angle and tilt. This is to make sure that my image is facing directly at the spaceship. So no tilting, no other perspectives, just straight up, top down. And we can hit generate. As you can see in the generate button over here, it shows you the credits it will cost to generate 4 images in our case. You can see we can, if we push this down to 1, it goes down to 5 credits. and basically just multiplies by the number you have here. In our case, we just want to keep it to 4. We want to get 4 images, then we can choose one from. Let's hit generate, and while this generates, keep in mind that sprite generations uses your Unity points, the credits from your subscription. Each generation, as I mentioned, costs a few points, depending obviously on the count, and of course, changing the dimension also makes it cost more. So be careful when choosing your dimensions. And there we go, we have 4 images generated. We can use one of these as our spaceship. We can choose... personally, I think I like this one the most. So we will right click and we will choose promote to current asset. That will basically select it as the sprite, or the sprite basically when we go back to Unity and outside of the sprite generation. Now, one important step is we need to make sure that the background is transparent. So we're just going to go to remove background. And as you can see, we have it selected and we will hit here. It costs around 5 to 15 credits. But I think it is necessary. It is because we cannot really have a character with this much background. So we're just going to hit remove background and we'll see how it goes. Perfect. Now, as you can see, we have the spaceship without the background. So we're just going to right click again. We're going to promote to current asset. And now when we go back outside of the generator, you can see, we can drag and drop it out here. It is, currently it looks a bit weird for some reason. Oh, let's see. Why do we not see it? Here we go. Just needed time to load. And as you can see, that is our image that we just generated, and it looks pretty nice without a background, and we can use this as our player character in the future lectures, of course. Now that we have our player sprite, we can go ahead and generate something else. So we're just going to do generate, new, then we're going to do sprite, like here. And I'm just going to call this enemy sprite, even though it's not really going to be an actual living being, it's more like going to be a comet or an asteroid. But we can still, I think, have something that looks great. So we're just gonna go with top down, 2D asteroid, let's say sprite, flat design, arcade, space shooter enemy, isolated game asset. And we're basically just gonna give it a lot of details. That way it's definitely gonna give us something good. So let's say centered, transparent, background, simple, readable silhouette. And I'm just gonna say, yeah, I think that's all for this. And we can move on to the negative. The thing is, I tried generating something similar before, and it always generated not the object itself, but generated the entire scene corresponding to the object. Because usually when you say asteroid, you say space, you say, or a comet, for example, you say stars, you say, yeah, sometimes it even adds buildings. So we're just gonna make sure that doesn't happen. So we're gonna first, let's get rid of the buildings. We're gonna say buildings, city, skyline, architecture, landscape, background, environment. So we don't want anything other than the asteroid. Realistic scene, stars. We don't want none of that. Yeah, obviously not 3D. And I think this should be enough. So let's generate 4 like we did earlier. And let's hit generate. And let's see what it comes up with.